Welcome to Tell Me Your Story, new paradigms for a new world where we're giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. We are here 9 times a week, Sundays at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., Monday mornings at 1 a.m., Wednesdays at 9 a.m., and Monday through Friday from 8 to 9 a.m., streaming live at all those times at richarddugan.com. We are on SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, as well as YouTube, where you can watch these conversations. I hope that you will take time to subscribe and click notifications so that when a new conversation is posted, you'll be notified and you'll be able to tune in, listen in, and learn, be entertained and inspired. A reminder that Choices, which is my book, 5 Steps for Life, it's available on Amazon.com in paperback, hardcover, and Kindle with Audible, soon to be released. We also ask that if you can support the work that we are doing financially, we do have a PayPal account. It is there for your security as well as ours. And when they ask for an email address to whom you're sending, please go to richard@richarddugan.com. That's the email address. If you go to richarddugan.com, there is also a link directly to PayPal so that you can send us whatever support you can. And we thank you to those who have helped and to those who will help. We also ask that you take time during this decade of perfect vision, the 2020s, to go within to that quiet, peaceful, calm, still place and listen to that still, small voice. And with that, we now take you to our very special interview and guest here on Tell Me Your Story. Welcome to Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World. I'm Richard Dugan, Reverend Dr. D, your host. And today we're going to dive into another world. Well, as always, we're always diving into another world, our guest's world. And his name is Lyndon Haynes. And Lyndon, thank you so much for joining us here on the program. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Now, my understanding is your latest work is a book entitled Paper Trail. And this is it's containing secrets and betrayal and the thin line between loyalty and survival. It unveils a journey into the heart of human nature. And we've been dealing a lot with that on this program lately, whether it's we're talking about leadership, and how important character is, or loyalty for that matter as well. And then just the general aspects of taking responsibility for one's choices. I have a book called Choices, 5 Steps for Life. And we talk about this all the
Okay.
time, that you've got to take responsibility. They're your choices. You're not a victim. That's the other thing that we talk about as well. There are no victims. So give us a little background on why you wrote this particular novel.
Yeah, I had this idea in my head from around 2013, and it was literally just the first sort of paragraph in regards to a woman having a bag of cash, sort of like lying half dead on the floor and being discovered by her neighbor. But what was the story behind it? So when I was putting it together, I wanted it to be like a test between the siblings, which is the main protagonist, which is Cindy and Dwayne Harper, brother and sister. So the story really resonates around them, and it's about their choices, which they make, that gets them into the position that they end up in and the journey that they go through. And I put like an ensemble of characters together as well along that journey, and it's all about the choices that they make. So, in a short synopsis, Cindy is a single mother. She's very career driven. She's working. She's got a great job at a pharmaceutical company. And her brother is the opposite. He's just coming out of prison after serving 3.5 years for various misdemeanors. And she really wants a family unit. She wants him to come out and, be on the straight and narrow and live a decent life with her and her daughter. And basically, they both get drawn into this world, which is a criminal underworld, unintentionally, and do not realize that along the way they are working more or less for the same people. And they keep the secret away from each other until it comes to a point where it's a pinnacle point where they have to talk about what they're doing, and the journeys, they have a different parallel journey, but it brings them back together towards the end because it's all intertwined with the people that they're interacting with, and it's based around their community. They live on an estate. We call it an estate over in America. I guess they call them project buildings or whatever, called the Kingfisher Estate. So a lot of the stuff is surrounded around there, and then it varies out to different countries such as Germany, Holland, the Middle East, and Romania, and also London, of course. So yeah, it's a real intertwined, intriguing suspense thriller that really is about two people who trust each other the most, but are not telling each other the truth.
Yeah, it's it's really something. We hear these stories all the time, don't we, in regards to family secrets in particular. You know,
Yes, yeah,
especially if
yeah,
it's about abuse. But then there's also the
yeah.
family secrets when it comes to money, comes to property, comes to things like
Mhm.
this. And um, I can't help but think every single time I come across a scenario like that of the biblical passage, ye shall know
Mm,
the truth, and the truth will set you free. And
yes,
the question that then comes to mind is to the individual is, do you want to be free? Really? Do you really want to be free?
yeah.
And most people would say yes, but they're not willing to take the actions to free themselves.
Yeah, and that's a great analogy, by the way, because the actual story I based on one of the seven deadly sins, which is greed, and it was really an exploration of what people will do when they come across greed, when they come across temptation. Will they lie and will they be deceitful to get that, in this case, money, and be deceitful to their closest, which is siblings, and they don't tell the truth. And that's one of the points of the book is that they hide this from each other and it takes them into worlds that they're not used to being in. And when they finally do speak the truth, they realize that they're better together than being apart. So it's a really good analogy that you put down, and it's really interesting because this is the first of a trilogy of this book, Paper Trail, and I wanted to base it on three of the seven deadly sins. So the first one is greed, the second one is going to be lust, and the third one's going to be envy. So I wanted to sort of show how people have come so far away from the biblical sort of writings that we were brought up on as Christian people. I'm Christian as well. My mum was a Christian, and things like money will divide people and make them be somebody that they're not. And to me, that's an interesting concept to build from.
Yeah, absolutely. Folks, the website, I'm going to give it to you a couple times in the program, but I highly recommend you go to SoundCloud or YouTube because the link will be there. It
Mm,
is Lyndon, Lyndon hyphen Haynes, Haynes hyphen author, author dot ihub, ihub.app for app. So that's lyndon-haynes-author.ihub.app. And we hope that you will go there to check out the work that he has put together for you
mm.
as we continue talking here on Tell Me Your Story. I am Reverend Dr. D, Richard Dugan, and yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about secrets and betrayal and loyalty and survival. But it's interesting. You place this uh, basically in this pub, the Griffin pub, where most of it takes place. But
Mm.
the reality is that this story probably could be the headlines on today's paper in September of 2025. And that's how
Most
far
definitely.
astray we've gone, Lyndon, isn't
Mm.
it? I mean,
Yeah.
I sometimes, and of course, there is no real answer to this question, but it's like, what happened? I mean, are we really that bad as a species? And this is in general because many of us, that's not the way we live.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of good people out there still, but just to what I was saying previously, there's a lot of greed in this world, and I think that that's one of the core things, and the divisions now are coming from, like societies of class, and especially here in the UK at the moment, that's a really, really prominent narrative that's happening at the moment here, whereas the I don't want to say the government as such, but yeah, the rhetoric that is being put out by the media and the government and everything is really divide and conquer. And if people are not understanding what's happening in this world, all over the world, not just in the US or in the United Kingdom, but as we know in the Middle East and in Africa and other places like that, there's a lot of war and there's a lot of greed, and a lot of it stems from people who believe that they belong or can take something from somebody that doesn't belong to them.
Yeah.
And, I have quite strong views on this because of what's been happening lately in the UK. There's a movement at the moment where there's a growing group of, people call them far right fascists or whatever, but they're just people that are trying to claim back their land. They're telling us to go back home. Anybody who's not uh, brown or black or an immigrant or a migrant or whatever, they're now accusing everybody of being responsible for the state that the country's in. And if we look into that deeper, and we can go deeper into the politics of it all, it's all generated by the people that govern us. And I feel really bad for people that have nothing and just want something in order to call life what we are privileged to have. But unfortunately, they're being denied the basic right to have a life because of maybe the color of their skin or their faith or religion or their culture. And I think that unfortunately, that is the way that this world is going. And yes, we're lost at the moment, and it's a very scary world. Like to bring children up into. And I will say this to you as a Christian person as well. I think we've strayed away from the faith and belief that was instilled in us as young people, as kids, and we're now sort of choosing a way to live that doesn't really befit how I see God wanted us to live. So
Yeah.
I know I've gone on a little bit, and I could really go into it because it is so prominent right now. Is on the nose. It's really hitting, especially in this country, which I've born and lived in for all of my life. It's starting to change, and we notice that change, and it's being driven. There's an agenda. I don't know why, but we'll find out the reason in the end. That's what I always think. So, yeah, part of me writing and being creative is to give people that escapism, to be honest with you, from what's happening around the world, because life is tough out there. There's people trying to work, there's people trying to feed their kids, and people just trying to survive. And if I can bring a little bit of entertainment and creativity um, and escapism to their life in these tough times, then I'm happy to do that. And if I can be an advocate to speak on the behalf of good people all around the world that I know are trying to do good things, like the doctors, the nurses, the people who work in emergency services, the humanitarians, people like that, then I'm happy to be on that platform and speaking about these things, definitely.
Well, I know that for some years, and I was born and raised in Phoenix, Arizona, and there are a lot of
Mm,
Indian reservations in Arizona, as
mm,
there are pretty much all over the country. And I never really wanted to do any research. I was curious about the native cultures and so forth. And each tribe has its own culture, so it becomes extremely complicated to research. You can't do it in general. Well, all Indians do this, and this is what they believe, and so forth.
mm.
And I didn't. I didn't do any research because I didn't want to infringe. It wasn't a question of, there's a phrase that they use about, borrowing from someone else's culture. You've done something wrong in doing that. And then I had my DNA tested. And then I found out I'm a member of the tribe, North, Central, and South American Indians. And then I
Wow.
realized,
Okay.
Oh, so I can go ahead and feel comfortable about doing the research I want to do. And I've had people of many different cultures on the program, and I've asked them about how they were raised and what they believe, and what are some of the traditions and rituals and ceremonies that they might have in their lives that maybe their families practiced, but they don't today. I mean, I was born and raised Catholic here in Phoenix, and of course, Advent around Christmas time, we would have the Advent candles, and we'd do the singing and the
Mhm.
lighting and all this. It was sort of akin to Hanukkah with the menorah, but for a different reason. And it was so gratifying to know because for some reason there's something within my DNA that says you can love all of the people regardless of their philosophies, their skin color, their height, their weight, et cetera, their disabilities, but you don't really want to go down the road of researching because it's not yours to research. And yet at the same time, it's like we need to learn about the history around the world of all of the different cultures to understand that we are more alike than we are different. And that's really, I
Yes.
think, what you're trying to put through here. Unfortunately, it's
Yeah.
the downside of alike with the seven deadly sins.
Yeah, it is, but they exist for a reason. And I look at things, it says money is the root of all evil, right? And
Mhm.
or money is a root of evil, whichever way you wish to
I
put it.
think the
And
phrase is the love of money is the root of all
is
evil,
yeah,
not so
sorry, the
much the
love of
money.
money. You're
Yeah,
right, yes.
yeah, yeah.
And taking that into context, I think if you look at and what people um, superficial kind of the superficial sort of world that people live in. It's like they're not satisfied by having just I wouldn't say basic things, but the things that we should all be grateful for, which is first of all life, second of all shelter, third food, health, stuff like that. To me, that is more rich than having a bag full of cash. And if I relate it back again to the book, I'm trying to demonstrate that the choices people make because of their love of the money puts them into positions that they don't want to be in, and therefore they become something that they're not, which is deceitful. They betray their best friend, they will lie, they will steal, and they'll do things out of character because that is the driver for them to be that person. And if you strip that all back, um, to me, as I said, there's other things out there that are more healthy than just having superficial things in life. Because, as my mum always says, you can't take it with you, whatever you have is all material. But what you do have in your heart and in your mind is always going to be with you. So, I try and put that within the book as well as being entertaining and creative as well because I want people to enjoy the book. But there are messages in there in terms of what you should prioritize and how you should live as a person. Because if you do make the wrong choices, as we all know, you're going to end up in a place that you don't want to be in.
Well, here in this country, there is a certain truth to what you just said, winding up in a place we don't want to be. And at the same time, wherever we are, there's nothing we can do about it. That's where we are, but that doesn't mean we have to stay there. And I think that's kind of the message that also is being said by you in your books, is
Mm.
that we can make different choices, right? I mean, we're not
Yes,
locked in. It's not set in stone, if you will.
never is, and this is the power of having those choices and knowing what is right from wrong. And unfortunately, some people, and in the book as well, the characters, they get drawn into a world that is unfamiliar to them. And the reasons why they're doing it is simply because they're trying to make something better of their life, but they're doing it the wrong way, And we've seen it all before. There's good people that go bad, and there's bad people that make wrong choices. And that really is what I'm trying to play into. It's really the human psyche as to know right from wrong and to see what choice you're going to make in terms of how you navigate that journey, And I
Hmm.
want to make it hard for the characters because I want them to have to think about the choices. And some of them is just circumstance as well, So they're thrown into it just by circumstance. So, when readers do read the book, they'll understand where I'm coming from with the characters in there because there are some good, wholesome characters in there. But
Yeah.
unfortunately, they get pulled into a world that they really don't want to be in. And the community spirit as well is broken. You mentioned the Griffin pub. That's something that is really prevalent out here in the UK, as you know. There's a pub on every corner, and there is that community sense of spirit. You can walk into that pub and you know your neighbor. Unfortunately, on this occasion, the neighbor, when he does find Cindy, he gets pulled into her world, and he doesn't want to be there, but he's a silent witness, if you like, and he plays a part in the story towards the end where it's getting really, really, as we say, sticky for them. So it's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting, and his loyalty is also tested. So that's another thing. He's a stand-up guy, but his loyalty becomes tested, and that's why I like doing. I like putting characters in positions where you have to make a choice, and it might not be the choice you want to make, but you may be forced into making that choice.
Yeah. I think the other aspect of this too, which we'll talk about a little bit more as well, is this aspect of people making choices based upon the choices that other people have made. And we'll talk a little bit about that as we continue here. Talking with Lyndon Hayes and his book, Paper Trail, here on Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan, the Reverend Dr. D, and we're talking with Lyndon Hayes. And one of the things that I find so fascinating, and this was sort of part of the conversation I had with my last interview before you, had to do with finding someone to follow, a guru, a mentor, a teacher, and so forth. And I used to think back when I was in my 20s and 30s that I was missing out on something because I didn't have this person. Now my metaphysical primer is Autobiography of a Yogi. I carry that with me almost everywhere I go. It is on my phone and so
Mm,
forth, but I'm not a follower of he or his philosophy directly. I'm still growing and learning and experiencing, and so my inner life and so forth and work is in constant change because my philosophy is that we are not a stagnant being. That's why we go to school to learn, and we go from first kindergarten or first grade through 12, and then maybe we'll go on to higher
mm,
education to learn a trade or a skill, or maybe we'll be a lawyer, a doctor, a nuclear physicist, etc., etc. Well, in the first grade, there's no way I could learn nuclear physics because I haven't gotten all of the tools necessary to process the information to become a nuclear physicist. And I believe that that process is both a physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual process. Now, let me preface that by saying that's for me. I don't put that on anybody else, okay? I need to be clear about that. Unlike some people in the public eye who make outlandish statements that evoke, unfortunately, sometimes deadly responses. And yes, it is a sad fact that people have died because someone didn't like what they said. It doesn't justify the killing. However, the person who said what they said has to take responsibility for inciting that kind of action. Again, no justification for killing another human being for speaking their
mm,
mind. But you and I
mm,
both
mhm,
know, just like in your book, your characters, there are people out there that we will maybe use, you'd use the word sticky. I say unhinged.
mm.
Talk to us a
Yeah,
little
it's a
bit
good
about,
word.
talk to us about that.
I like what you're saying there because my mentors as a person when I was growing up, I guess, firstly was my mother because she was the person that raised me and my brothers. So I saw her strength and her teachings. And as I said, she brought us up Christian. She used to take us to church and still does. Um, but as I've grown, I've like looked at other things, and one of the guys that I really gravitate to was Dr. Wayne Dyer, if you
Oh,
know
yes.
Dr. Wayne Dyer. I listened to a lot of his podcasts, his talks, read his books, and I really gravitated to the kind of teachings that he was giving because that's how I want to live my life. I want to be a positive person. I want to be someone who motivates others. I want to be someone who is spiritual as well. So, I had a not a conflict, but there was a time where I was a little bit conflicted in terms of following Christianity or just being metaphysical or spiritual, and
Hmm.
it's a journey that I had to go on myself, and that was done by me reading a lot of books, like what you said. You're carrying the yogi book. I've read books of Buddhism, and I love that way of life as well. I've read books on just being positive by what's the author's name? I love him as well. Um, oh, Vincent Peale, Dr. Vincent Peale, Power of Positive Thinking.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Stuff like that is my staple, and I still go back to those books today. But it's interesting you say that because a lot of I just like to say young people here at the moment do not have that type of person in their life who's someone who can mentor them and guide them and offer them teachings and to help them learn about new cultures and different ways and different faiths and everything else. Because I believe that, again, we're coming back to choices. We all have a choice of how we want to live our life. And nobody's saying that you have to be the strictest Muslim or Christian or Orthodox Jew in the world or whatever faith you follow. But I think that is part of the discovery of being you and being a human being and being the best human being that you can be is to do your research, is to have somebody that you're able to, you know, be challenged by and to ask questions and to be guided by and all the rest of it. And it's really interesting you say that because that's one thing that I've done in the last year. I've been a mentor for young people here in the UK who want to get into creative activities. And I've really seen the growth in a lot of people just by listening to my story, my journey. And it's very interesting to see how people respond to that. And I really like the fact that I can discover all of these things on my own. It's not something that is forced on me. It's not something that somebody's told me to do. It's me on my self-discovery as a person to grow and become who I am today. And I think it's very important that we have more of these people or more of these positive speaking people because I understand what you're saying about the others that may say things that really again I mentioned the word divide, like maybe divide people or provoke people to think in a certain way, and they have a responsibility. They have a responsibility to the human race to like not push out that propaganda. If you're going to be somebody who's going to have a voice, then at least have a voice that's going to encourage people to be the best that they can be, rather than just to incite hatred or violence or whatever. So to me, it's very important, and I'm glad you mentioned it. Like, I feel like we're on the same wavelength, in some of the things that you're talking about, because we're talking about Bible, we're talking about Christianity, we're talking about faith, we're talking about mentorship. All of these things are important to me that make me the person that I am today. And I want to do more in terms of my writing in the future. I want to do more of that style of book. I will still continue to do my thrillers and stuff like that because that's what I love, but I really want to turn it also to, motivating people to be the best that they can be and take that journey like I'm doing to try and be successful in whatever they choose to be successful in. So I think it's very important.
I couldn't agree with you more. There's another biblical passage, and I'm not your typical book chapter and verse kind of guy. I just know that these passages are in there that speak about a house divided cannot and will not stand. And when you use the phrase divide and conquer, that has been the MO, the modus operandi for politicians in this country
Mm.
over the
Yeah.
last, at least the last 20 years.
Yeah.
And there's what really is interesting from my perspective is how individuals have chosen to give up their, I'm going to call it their critical thinking processes and abdicate their responsibilities to someone else.
Mm,
Saying, oh no, I want this person in that office or in this place and in this position and so forth. Oh no, it doesn't matter that he or she did this or that or the other thing. I like their policies. And I sit there and I'm going, so Martin Luther King was wrong when he said we should not be judged by the color of our skin, but by the content of our character. And I've
mm,
even asked business leaders, that person over there in that political position who is behaving in such a way, if you had one of those people as an employee, would you keep them? And they say, oh no. Then why did you elect them? I don't understand. Well, I like their policies, but that doesn't make any difference. You just
mm.
said you would not hire that person because of their character. How is it that a political position is any different? And I love what George Carlin said, that it is not the fault of the politicians, it's the fault of the people. And I think it was Benjamin Franklin, I think it was, or
Mm.
Jefferson, who made the statement about needing you in order to keep a democracy, you have to have an educated electorate. And with what's been happening in our country in the last 20 years, I have to wonder if we have an educated electorate that can't see past one's behalf. I mean, you remember Michael Dukakis was running for
Mhm.
office back there, and he was considered a womanizer, like many of
Mhm.
our candidates for office. And he said to
Yeah,
the media, "Follow me. I'll show you. I'm not doing." They did, and they caught him. And I think he ended up dropping out because
you
people weren't going
did.
to vote for a
You
guy
did,
who's
yeah.
a
Yeah.
womanizer. So
Yeah.
how have things changed so much that that no longer matters? Have you pondered that at all to try to answer that kind of a question, or is it even a question we can even answer?
I mean, it's a big topic right now because of we're looking at the integrity of politicians here as well. And there's been a couple of scandals recently with the current government. And I remember Michael Dukakis as well. And even the guy that's there now, Mr. Trump, he's a convicted he's a convicted criminal
Hmm.
basically, but he's still the most powerful man in the world, and he's put there by people who believe in him. Because I think again, it's all about the agenda and the narrative that you spin to the public, and you will get some people who I don't want to disrespect anybody, but maybe cannot think for themselves or make a valued decision without doing research about what these policies and people are about. And they tend to follow it's like sheep, isn't it? You have one shepherd and the sheep follows everyone. But it seems like we're in a world where it's full of sheep at the moment and nobody has their own individual thought process, and that's unfortunately how it is. And I really do feel strongly that they I don't know, when I say they, I'm talking about the media and I'm talking about the politicians. They put out a narrative that hooks people in, and then the momentum builds from there, and people are blinded to actually what's happening because they're so inundated to this person and what they're saying. If you think about it, it's like a cult figure, isn't it? If you have a
Hmm.
cult figure and he's preaching to the masses that, like Jim Jones in Guyana or something, and they all believe him and follow him, but they don't actually really know what they're following. And they haven't researched enough to know whether he's actually speaking factual truths or he's just making it all up. But it's just a following, and then the momentum builds and then everybody else falls in. I think at the moment it's important is again, I go back to the young people of the world because they're the future, yeah. They have to be brought up to have individual thinking, be strong enough to have their own mind, and like you said, be strong enough to be proud of their own character and believe in themselves enough so that they know that their character has integrity in whatever decisions they make in life, and that's just a human trait that we should all have. But unfortunately, the world that we live in today is full of distraction.
Hmm.
Yeah, we have social media, we have, phones, we have video games, we have this, we have that.
Hmm.
And, when I was growing up, we didn't have all that. So you were allowed to be yourself.
Yeah.
Whereas today, a lot of the youngsters are very similar because they're all doing similar things and they all follow similar things. And it's a trend, isn't it? That's what they call it. Things
Yeah.
are trending.
Yeah.
So they think, yeah, well, this is trending, so I'll just go along with it. We need more individual free thinkers. We need people that are able to be brave enough to speak their mind against the grain of everything that's happening and follow through and be proud of what they're saying. And I think really people are being dumbed down a lot right now.
Yeah.
And they don't realize it, but it's a dumbing down. It's a bit like I forgot the name of the book, but there is a book where there's a set of people that follow this particular cult leader, and they don't understand why they're doing it. They're just doing it because they want to be part of something, and that's kind of where I feel that things are going at the moment, is even if you say to somebody that I'm spiritual or I'm religious, they want to challenge you on that. Why
Yeah.
can't you just praise that person and say, "Oh, well done. I think that's really good. I want to be something like that, but I don't know how to get there. Can you teach me, show me?"
Yeah.
But no, it's like it's seen as taboo in some places where you cannot be like that.
Yeah.
It's a tough world, man. And this world is, we're going in a direction that's not. I don't know if it's going to be cohesive to human nature in the end,
Yeah.
It's bad to say that, but it's the reality of what it is. So this is why we're here to talk about it and discuss it, and
Yeah.
people who are listening to your show will have their opinions about what we're saying, but I'm sure they'll agree with a lot of what we are talking about.
Well, I hope that they'll consider it at least. We talk about how we lay out this giant smorgasbord. Every interview, we add a new dish, and we ask people to come and partake. And now, if it doesn't resonate with you, if it doesn't feel comfortable, okay, fine, you don't have to. Find something that does, and then take it away and process it and so forth and so on. And then come back to the table again. Maybe that thing that
Mm,
didn't resonate with you before, maybe it might intrigue you and you'll pick it up and you'll take it away and you'll look at that. We're not asking you to believe anything that we say. That is not the point of this program. It is to
mm,
put the ideas out there. I like to say, Lyndon, that um, usually I would say this at the end of the program. Now you've heard the entire program. You've heard what we've had to say. Guess what? Now you have to deal with it because you can't unhear it. Now, you may not deal with it today or tomorrow or next week, but somewhere down the road, you're going to remember this conversation that we've had and the things that we have had to say. And it's going to click in your mind. And you're in an experience where now you're faced with dealing with that situation based
mm,
upon some of the things we've said. But think about it this way. What if you get to that situation having never heard what has been said on this program? What are you going to do? You're going to go back to the old patterns, all right? Things that really haven't worked for you, but it's all
mm.
you got. It's all you've
Yeah,
got. And that's what I love
yeah.
about this whole aspect of mentorship and so forth. And we're going to take a pause here just to remind you that you are listening to Tell Me Your Story. We're talking with Lyndon Hayes. His book, Paper Trail. We'll hope you'll go to the website. We're going to give that out in just a moment as we continue here on Tell Me Your Story. Haynes is my guest. Lyndon Haynes is the author of A Paper Trail, and it is the first of I'm guessing I can be pretty accurate in this. The first of seven books, because you're basing them on the seven deadly sins, as it were, sort of the thesis for each of the books, which I find fascinating. The website we want you to go to, folks, to find out more is lyndon-haynes-author.ihub.app. Now that's lyndon hyphen haynes hyphen author dot ihub dot app. And we'll be linked to that website as long as it is, so that people can click on it while they're listening to the interview. And it's fascinating. And if I remember now what it was we were going to jump into next, having to do with this whole aspect of education in particular, as well as being
Mm.
responsible for the choices we make. I tell people that when we talk about choices, my book, Choices 5 Steps for Life, the first step is guess what? Make a choice. Oh, but I don't know what choice to make. Okay, guess what? You've got to get some education. Now, you talked about us
Mm.
being dumbed down, but there's a part of every single human being, I believe, I'm optimistic about this, that if they were honest with themselves and tapped into that, they could start to move away from the echo chamber, party line kind of thing, and start to think for themselves and process with logical, critical thought. And that, to me, is one of the things we promote on this program, which is our intuition. We encourage
Mm.
people to spend time during this decade of perfect vision, the 2020s, and go within, all right, to go within to that quiet, peaceful, calm, still place and listen to that still small voice. Talk to us about your impressions and the importance of doing just that.
Yeah, I really love where you're coming from here, and I must say I want a copy of your book. By the way, I'm gonna get it after this. But it's really interesting the way you put things, and I really appreciate you doing it because I feel like I'm really meant to be here talking to you right now. That's the spirit I'm feeling. It's very interesting. My father is a neuro-linguistic programmer and a counselor, and he has been for many years. And he taught me the art of meditation. He taught me the art of following your intuition. He taught me the art of being still, being in the
Mm,
moment, listening. And I think it's so interesting that you say that because even myself in the life I'm in right now, I have a really gut feeling about a few things in my life that I need to change and an action, to be honest with you. And I can only go by my intuition. I remember my dad telling me many years ago, he said, your intuition is like your antennae. You know, the antenna that you used to have on an old radio that picks up signals and airwaves. And he said to me, that is never wrong. It is never, ever wrong. It steers you in the right way all the time. So always trust your intuition and pick up on it. And the only way that you're going to pick up in it is if you are being still. Because with all the chaos that's going on, in life in general, where people are rushing around doing things, trying to make things happen, surviving, thriving, all of the rest of it. If you do not slow down and take that time to just have a moment, be still, listen to the universe, as they say,
hmm
tap into your own intuition, then it's like a sat nav in your body. You're gonna veer off of course. Your journey's gonna go a different way than what it should. And it's taken me years to understand that, and now I fully understand it. And it's something that I think is so important for people in general to understand that we were made to have these things within us. These are tools that we need for life to map us on our journey that we need to go on. And unless we know how to use them, we'll end up in a place that we don't want to be in and wonder why and how we got there. So for me, it's extremely important and it's a very big way of life of mine. I meditate every day. Every morning before I do anything, it's 10 minutes of just nothing. No phone, no nothing. I just sit there, I close my eyes, I meditate. And that gets me in tune for the day because it gives me that access to my own world, if you like, my intuition to understand what I need to do for the day. And listen, every day, everyone has to make a lot of choices. Whether you go this route to take the kids to school, whether you go to the shops first, whether you speak to your boss about something that's been on your mind, to something. And the only way you're going to make the right choices and decisions is by being in tune with yourself. You have to tap into what is God-given, which is your human antennae, and which is the intuition. And this is really good that you said that, because it affirms to me that that is the only way. There is no other way, because as I said, my dad been telling me that for the last 25 years.
Yeah.
And he's never wrong about a lot of things. I love my dad. He's sometimes a stubborn man, but he's never wrong. He'll say something and it will always happen. So yes, that's something that as a person, my own personal life, I really bring that into my lifestyle.
Well, I'll tell you that first of all, you're fading out a little bit, your audio there, but you're fine. I
Okay,
heard everything. And
cool.
the one thing that I find so fascinating too is that I've come to the conclusion, as you've kind of stated, that your intuition will never put you in harm's way. However, it may very well challenge you or test you. And I had one of those tests years ago. I've shared it
Mm,
many times on this program where I ended up going 3 miles out of my way and did not understand why until I got the other impression that, oh, but you said that you trust me. All right. Do you trust me? And if you do, then do this. You're not avoiding an accident. You're not going to meet somebody spectacular along the way. All you're doing is showing me that you trust me.
mm.
Now, there might be those who would say, well, yeah, but I'm giving up my individuality. I mean, in America, we have individuality, freedom of speech, and freedom of religion, and all of these things. And I'm going, it's not taking any of that away. Nobody's taking that away. All right. What you are doing is you are making a choice as an individual to be guided by the very thing that I should, well, okay, the very thing that is going to take you down the path that the universe needs you as an individual to go. All right.
Yes,
So you're not
yes,
giving up anything.
no. And may I add to that, that I think that the challenges that do come with that are supposed to be there because it builds you, character builds you.
Mhm.
Yeah. I always say lessons and blessings. I say that to everybody, if they have a challenge and they overcome it and they're like, oh my God, I had to go through all of that for this. I'm saying it's lessons and blessings. You're going to learn from that. So the next time that you have to go and make that decision or go to that place where you don't feel like you want to go, it's going to teach you the reason why you're supposed to do it this way, and it builds you. I've had many of that in my life. I've had many challenges and I've always overcome them because I've always had faith in me, in God, in everything else around me, in the people around me. And as I said, my own intuition has got me here today. I wouldn't have been here talking to you today if I didn't follow my intuition to try and like promote my book and get myself on other platforms where people could learn who I am and why I write and all the rest of it. But that is a choice that I was making. I was challenged to do that. So I think it's very important that, young and old people start to like really learn about that is very important. And as you says, it never steers you wrong, but yes, it gives you challenges. But believe me, once you overcome those challenges, you're going to be in a much better place for it. Definitely.
Yeah. Did you ever see that movie clip? I can't remember the title of the movie, but it starred Morgan Freeman as God. And there's
Yes,
this young woman
God
sitting in a restaurant,
Almighty is called. Yeah.
God Almighty, and he's sitting, and there's this young woman sitting in the restaurant, and she wants to get, I guess, more fries or something, and he looks at her, very much aware that she's a little troubled, and so he's, hey, what's going on? And she shares the general aspects, and so he responds with a great statement. He says, "Do you think that when people pray, uh, they pray for courage, that God gives them courage, or when they pray for patience, that God gives them patience? No. When someone prays for courage, He gives them opportunities to be courageous. When they pray for patience, He gives them opportunities to develop patience. And if they're looking for love, He doesn't give them love, He gives them opportunities to give and receive love. And that's what we're talking about when we talk about the intuition. It's really, really
Mm,
great. Lyndon Haynes is
mm,
my guest, and his book, Paper Trail, is the book. And this is Tell Me Your Story. Well, Lyndon, as it always happens, we always come to the end of a program. Now, we're not 100% finished here. We have a little bit to go here. But I find it fascinating, and I'm wondering how aware you are of many of the things that are going on in the United States, which is a child of the UK. I don't care
mhm.
what anybody says, we are an offspring, okay? And comparing what's happening here to what's happening right there in the UK, you
Mm,
made the comment that there are a lot of similarities. There are a
mm,
lot.
mhm,
One of the things that, because of you are a man of faith, and I'm sure you're familiar with many of the prophecies and so forth. And I'm very much so. I worked for 15 years back in the 80s and 90s for a Christian station, so I'm very familiar with a lot of the end time prophecies and so forth.
mhm,
And what gets me, what really shocks me to no end, is how surprised many people who live by these prophecies, who are people of faith, at least that's what they say, they're people of faith, and they're surprised at where the world is today. Now, I
mm,
am not a person who believes in a lot of these quote unquote prophecies, only because that means that there are certain things that are locked in the script that we can't change, which
mhm,
means that this whole aspect of choices is nothing more than a smokescreen on my part, because what choices do we have? We are forced to go down this path of these prophecies. That's why I don't believe in them in that
mm,
context. I'm curious as to your perspective when it comes to people who like to utter the statements that, oh, well, it's like when I was with the radio station, every time there was a dust up in Israel, oh, it's the end times, Armageddon, and I mean, they would go off on that thing. And then, of course, nothing happened.
mm,
And then you wonder, and I read, there was one guy by the name of Edgar Weisenot. He's since passed away. So now he knows the truth. Okay. But Edgar predicted in 1997 that in September, this month, between the 15th and the 17th, would be the second coming. And of course, that came and went, and he disappeared for a few months, and then he resurrected again in 1917, and he made the same utterance about September of that year. I had the numbers, I was off, and da 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 da. Nice explanation. And it didn't happen. Now, you and I both know that no man knoweth the day or the hour of the return. But another gentleman also stated in one of his books, not only do we not know the day or the hour, we don't know how many times, because it doesn't say second anywhere. It
mm,
says, all it says is return, but it doesn't
mm,
say how many times. And so he interpreted that as a return to each one of us inside,
mm,
not
mm,
externally. And that's going back
mm,
to what I said earlier about how Christianity is a metaphysical religion or philosophy,
mm,
because it's about beyond the physical, with the exception of throwing the money changers out of the temple. Most of his conversation was about the hereafter, when
mm,
we die, when we leave this mortal coil and we live in
mm,
heaven. It's
mhm,
metaphysical, it's
mhm,
beyond the physical.
mhm.
Where are you in that regard? Are you optimistic? Do any of these prophecies really resonate with you? Or do you even concern yourself because the work that you're doing is much more important than focusing on that stuff?
Um, I would say in a work context, um, I don't focus on that stuff as much, but in a personal and a human context, yes. I'm surrounded by people that tell me these things every day. They say they like when the pandemic happened, they said this is the end of the world. This is what's going to happen. It was written in the Bible of this and that and the other. And of course, we went through the pandemic and we all came out, thankfully, not all of us, but out the other end kind of thing.
The human race
Um,
survived at least.
yeah, we survived as a human race, yes. So yeah, I think, and I don't want to sound disrespectful by saying this, but
No.
it's kind of with a pinch of salt, we take these things and we look at them in context of what's happening today. And that's when they're more sort of prevalent because there are things happening today. There's always been things happening in the world. That's the
Hmm.
fact of the matter.
Hmm.
And whether that changes or whether the second coming happens or whether the Armageddon, the end of the world, all of that,
Yeah.
we're never going to know. One thing I do agree with you on is that I always say this to people, and especially, unfortunately, at funerals and stuff like that, I say, we are vessels. We are mere vessels. Yeah. We're put on earth to be who we are for a purpose. Okay, the spirit will live on. Yeah, we'll go to heaven or wherever we go, and we'll become what we become there. And that
Hmm.
is unknown to us as yet. But my belief is if you always try to be a good, decent person, then hopefully you'll be a good, decent person as a spirit as well. But this, what you see here, is the physical vessel. I'm here with a purpose, you're here with a purpose. Maybe our purposes are similar because we want to teach people the right way and to think in the right way and help them and guide them. And I do that through becoming an author and writing books, and you do that similarly by being an author and spreading the word on your radio show and talking about these subjects. Um, in terms of, I won't say that I'm really, hung up on prophecies as such, because sometimes it's like my mum will say a lot of things, she's from Caribbean background, so there's a lot of prophecies and prophetic sayings in the household that you've heard over and over again when you're growing up. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
I'm getting to that age now. I'm like, no, mum, I haven't seen anything like that. It's not this, it's not that. But look, I'm not dismissing it because these things are said for a reason. So it may manifest in a different way to what it was actually interpreted as.
Yeah.
And that's one thing we have to be careful of. But second of all, I just think like I think my message is that, we are people who have to think for ourselves and not always listen to what others who we put in higher regard than us are saying, because it's not always the truth. We know the one thing about politicians is that they lie.
They do. Not
So
all of
I
them and
don't,
not all the time, but they do,
not all of them, but the majority of them, you know,
unfortunately.
they they will say they will spin whatever they need to spin in order for us to believe them, right?
Hmm.
And I think that when you got people like who come out and be prophets and so on and so forth, it's exactly what they're doing is the same thing. It's just in a different realm, if you like. So I would say to people that, believe what you think is right. And as we went on the intuition before, whatever your intuition tells you, then that's what you need to follow. And that's all you can do,
Yeah.
because we're not greater than what we think we are. And as I said, we're mere vessels here. We're carrying messages all over the world because that's what we're put on the earth to do. Some of us are writers, some of us are doctors, some of us are healers, some of us are people that do invent things and stuff like that. And
Mhm.
that's what we're here for, and hopefully we will know when we get to the other side, God willing, that if we done things in the right way, our spirit will live on in a positive way, and that's what I can say on the matter. That's my beliefs.
Hmm. Well, also recognize too, even when you are following the guidance of that intuition, it's still your responsibility because you made the choice. It's not the
Absolutely,
intuition's responsibility. It's
absolutely,
the intuition is just a guide. All right. You know,
absolutely.
this voice told me to do it. No, that's not going to wash
Mm,
with me. I may have listened to the voice that said, you need to turn right up here at this next corner.
mm,
But it's my responsibility to be aware and responsible for my actions as I move through my day and my life. And the actions that we're going to take right now are we're going to let you know that we're talking with Lyndon Haynes. His book is called Paper Trail, and this is Tell Me Your Story. Lyndon, I wish to thank you profusely for being a part of what we're trying to do here to change the world for the
Mm,
better for everyone. Now, I also preface it by saying that everybody has a different definition of what is better. And
mm,
because not everybody wants the same thing, there's more than enough to go around. Oh,
yeah.
and also to that thing you said about how we're vessels spreading messages, those messages that we've been given. I love what James Redfield said in the Celestine Prophecy about that, that we are here to share our messages with one another. And I take it another step and say that without those messages, we can't continue to put together our puzzle of the big picture as we see it. And
Mm,
sometimes someone, such as yourself, will give me a message and I'll put that in there and see if it fits. And so, oh, now I understand because he said this about that. That makes sense. And so I follow through with that, and I've got that part of the picture. I got the little girl's face, or I've got the carousel built, or whatever it
mm,
is my picture is, little by little. And when we don't share those messages, we deny others of the opportunity to do the same, to put those
yeah.
pieces into their puzzle to see if they can better understand who they are
Mm.
and who you are. And maybe they can get an answer to the question, why am I here and where am I going? But I think it's real important. So thank you for being a part of that.
No, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure being on your show. I've learned a lot as well as spoken to you a lot and I've learned a lot about yourself as well. So I really appreciate you having me on the show. Much
I
appreciated.
You are very welcome. And I have three final questions I ask all of my
Mhm.
guests. But before I do, I want to thank you for listening to and watching Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World. We are giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. We are here on Sundays at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., Monday mornings at 1 a.m., Wednesdays at 9 a.m., and Monday through Friday from 8 to 9 a.m., streaming live at all those times at richarddugan.com. We are on SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, Blueberry, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music. We're on YouTube where you can watch these conversations. Please click subscribe and notification. And also go to Amazon.com to get a copy of Choices 5 Steps for Life. It is in paperback, hardcover, as well as Kindle. And then if you could leave us a tip, that would be so great. We have a tip jar. It's called PayPal. And there are links to those sites, Amazon and PayPal, on the homepage at richarddugan.com. And finally, please take the time during this decade of perfect vision, the 2020s, to spend some time in that quiet, peaceful, calm, still place and listen to that very still, small voice. My still, small voice is my friend. That's how I refer to him. I refer to him as a him. So, in any event, I hope that you folks will do that. With all that being said, we now go to our final three questions. The first of which is, who is Lyndon Haynes?
Lyndon Haynes is a father. He is a mentor. He is a writer and author, and he is somebody that wants to make a difference and inspire others to be something better than they feel they can be.
What gets you up in the morning?
Oh, life itself, just blessed to have life, I've lost a lot of people along the way who are my age or younger, so I'm just grateful to be here every day and to be able to do what I'm doing. So I'm just grateful for health and life.
And finally, what was your best day?
Wow, that's um that would have happened this year. I went to Miami and I went to the American Black Film Festival, and I'd say the first day of that day, which I think was June the 11th this year. I mean, incredible welcome. I met so many people. They were very receptive to me and my work, which was great. I gave out loads of books. I just felt happy. I was in the space that I think I should be in. And yeah, it just felt it was uplifting. It really, really helped me a lot with my confidence in terms of speaking to people and also confidence in my work to know that I'm on the right path and I'm doing the right thing. So yeah, that happened this year.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, Lyndon Haynes, thank you once again for joining us here on the program. And I thank you for listening to and watching Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World. And until our next broadcast, podcast, videocast, love Talal. Jeanette, I'm still listening. Dad, continue to be happy because I am. Smokey, I'll see you on the other side. Mike, thanks for being in my life and letting me be in yours. And to my dear friend Zorro, aho, aho.